Chapter 10. The car glided through the rain-soaked darkness, and the tense silence inside was almost tangible. Clyde sat behind the wheel, his posture relaxed, yet his gaze remained alert on the road ahead. Sean sat beside him, focused on the technical devices resting on his lap. In the rearview mirror, Clyde could see Emily sitting in the back seat, her legs crossed, her jacket loosely draped around her shoulders. But her hands betrayed what she was truly feeling. She kept bringing her nails to her mouth, chewing on them, pulling her fingers away when she noticed, only to start again seconds later. Clyde observed her discreetly, and although he said nothing, he wondered why they had so obviously assigned a rookie to him. Nervousness was the biggest enemy in a mission like this, and Emily radiated it, no matter how much she tried to fake the opposite. Clyde continued to watch her through the rearview mirror without revealing anything. It wasn't his style to question his superior's decisions, but he couldn't deny that Emily's behavior irritated him. For someone who was supposedly a professional, her nervousness was hard to ignore. Still, he remained silent and instead focused on the road. 5 more minutes, Sean suddenly murmured while checking the last details on his device. He turned to Emily and held out a small, transparent bag. Inside was a single tiny white pill, glossy and perfectly round. Emily took the bag and examined it before raising an eyebrow. "You won't even touch it with your bare hands," she said dryly. "And I'm supposed to put it in my mouth?" "Don't swallow it," Sean corrected. "Just keep it in your mouth. Seriously, do not swallow it. The coating is thick enough that it won't dissolve in saliva. It only activates when it comes into contact with stomach acid and releases the poison." Emily let out a dry laugh, sharp and humorless. "That's so reassuring," she said sarcastically, opening the bag and letting the pill fall into her hand. She studied it for a moment as if making sure she wasn't about to take a fatal risk, before placing it inside her cheek. Clyde watched her in the rearview mirror without saying a word, then turned his attention back to the road. He knew better than to interfere, even though the whole situation was making him uneasy. This wasn't his first mission, and the thought that Emily might put him in danger was difficult to ignore. "Keep the pill in your cheek and nothing will happen, kid," Sean assured her. Whether he was trying to reassure Emily or himself was unclear. Emily straightened her posture, her shoulders squared, and her expression turned sharp, almost arrogant. "Don't worry," she said quietly, her voice suddenly calm and full of confidence. "I never make mistakes." Clyde suppressed a quiet snort and said nothing. "We'll see," he thought. What is this? Did Daddy's spoiled brat get to play agent now? Your only target is Markovich, Sean reminded them in a matter-of-fact tone. There will definitely be other familiar faces there tonight. Ignore them. Emily shrugged. That's easy enough. One walking corpse is enough for me. He makes his money trafficking women. He's a monster. You're helping make the world a little bit safer. Emily nodded slowly, and for a moment, nothing could be heard except the sound of tires rolling over wet asphalt. Finally, she said quietly, "That still leaves 3 million others." Clyde pulled the car into a dark side street near the club. The pulsing lights from the entrance and the heavy bass of the music echoed through the night. "Ready?" Sean asked. "Always," Emily answered with an almost diabolical smile. "What's plan B if this doesn't work?" Clyde asked, his voice calm but skeptical. Sean grinned and leaned back casually. "We won't need one. Emily's got this. It'll go off without a hitch." Yeah, still, I'd rather not have to stick my tongue down the throat of a guy who's 4 times my age. God, he is 4 times my age. That's still disgusting. While ranting about the mission, Emily took off her jacket, revealing a glittering dress that was barely more than a wisp of fabric. Clyde commented dryly, "Actually, he's 68. Emily and Sean both turned to him at the same time, eyebrows raised. Emily shot him a flat look. Yeah, and I'm 17, she said monotonously before stepping out of the car. Clyde frowned and turned back to Sean. This is a joke, right? He asked, his tone sharper now. Sean clicked his tongue and got out of the car. Welcome to the team, he muttered before following Emily. Clyde sat there for a moment, his eyes on Emily's retreating figure. Then he opened the door, got out, and caught up with the two. Clyde observed Emily from a distance, his position in the crowd inconspicuous, yet strategic. His eyes remained fixed on her as she stood at the bar, seemingly relaxed and in her element. Markovich had turned toward her, a glass in his hand speaking to her while his gaze repeatedly roamed over her body. Emily responded with a playful smile, a soft giggle, and the perfect blend of seduction and restraint. Clyde had to admit he was almost impressed. She played her role flawlessly, as if she had never done anything else. Her body language was fluid, her movements subtle but effective. Markovich was captivated. His body language spoke volumes. He leaned in closer, spoke softly, and Emily did exactly what was expected. She met his gaze, tilted her head slightly, making him believe she was completely drawn to him. Then Clyde saw Markovich place his hand on Emily's ass. His grip was firm, possessive, and Emily reacted as if it was exactly what she wanted. She smiled, giggled again, and leaned subtly into him. Markovich whispered something in her ear, and his hand moved even higher, sliding briefly under her short skirt. Emily didn't flinch, continuing her act as if it were the most natural thing in the world. Clyde's jaw tightened involuntarily, resisting the urge to look away. He knew this was all part of the plan, but it felt wrong to watch her like this, forced into this role, enduring these touches. Now that he knew how old she was this even legal? Emily remained professional. She played her part perfectly, letting Markovic believe he had total control over her. Her body language was an invitation, her reaction seemed genuine. She made him believe he was the one in charge, and that's exactly what made her performance so convincing. Clyde took a deep breath, feeling the tension in his shoulders grow. Damn, she's good, he thought, but the realization came with an underlying frustration he couldn't quite shake. He wanted to look away, didn't want to see how far Markovich would go, but he knew it was his job to watch her, to protect her if necessary. Jesus, Clyde muttered under his breath, his voice hoarse and tense. What's wrong? Sean suddenly asked over the earpiece, his voice calm but alert. Clyde hesitated for a moment before answering tersely, Nothing. She's good. Very good, but it's hard to watch. Sean was silent for a moment before replying dryly. Stay focused, Clyde. This is her job. I know, Clyde murmured, locking his eyes back on Emily, who was still playing her role to perfection, while Markovich became increasingly convinced he had the upper hand. I know. The game dragged on, and Clyde continued his silent surveillance. Emily was a pro. She had proven that. Markovich was entranced by her presence, and on the surface their conversation seemed harmless. But Clyde knew better. Minutes passed as Markovich became bolder. His hands wandered more than once to places Clyde could barely stomach watching. Yet Emily remained in character, her posture professional, her smile perfectly calculated. She was a master at giving Markovich exactly what he wanted, while keeping herself in control. But when the old man finally shoved his tongue down her throat, Clyde's stomach twisted. Almost half an hour had passed when Clyde noticed Emily wrapping up the conversation. She leaned back, smiled once more, and Markovich seemed pleased. She gestured toward the restrooms and moved away from the bar with a flirtatious nod. But instead of heading toward the restrooms, Emily veered at the last second, disappearing into the dancing crowd. The strobe lights flickered, casting chaotic bursts of brightness and shadow, making it difficult for even Clyde to track her. He lost sight of her for a moment and had to push through the crowd. Emily reached the exit where Clyde finally caught up to her. Without a word, the two of them made their way back to the car waiting in the dark side street. Sean was already in the driver's seat, hands on the wheel, the engine idling. As the door opened, he turned to look at them. Emily collapsed onto the back seat, immediately pulling on her jacket as if to shield herself. She took a deep breath, leaned her head back, and closed her eyes. "That was absolutely disgusting," she groaned, her voice filled with frustration and revulsion. Then she grabbed a water bottle, took a sip, and spat half of it out the window, as if trying to cleanse her mouth. Clyde glanced at her briefly over his shoulder before settling into the passenger seat. "I can imagine," he murmured, his tone almost sympathetic. Sean gave a curt nod as he backed the car out onto the street. "Did he take it?" he asked, eyes fixed on the darkness ahead. Emily cracked an eye open and looked at Sean. "Of course," she said coolly. Clyde leaned back in his seat, his gaze flicking to the rearview mirror where he saw Emily's exhausted face. She closed her eyes again and took another deep breath as the car rolled through the streets. "Good work," Sean said shortly but approvingly. Emily didn't respond. She only pulled her jacket tighter around herself, as if trying to leave everything that had happened in the last hour behind her.